Hi, good evening, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. If you could all find your seats, please. It is now 6 o'clock. And if somebody could do the honours and just pull the doors to at the back, please. Right, if we are all now seated, we can begin. Welcome to this meeting of the council. Before we start the usual proceedings, I'm sure you will all have been saddened to learn of former councillor and Mayor of South Ribble, Dorothy Gardner, and the sad passing. So if I could please ask you to stand for a minute's silence. Thank you. If you'd like to be seated. If I could invite Councillor Walton first, would you like to say a few words?
Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence, I'd like to speak, but could Councillor Green speak as well? Thank you very much. Yes, unfortunately, it was with great shock and sadness when we heard of the sudden death of the former Mayor and Councillor and colleague Dorothy Gardner. Dorothy served this council with great dignity for 12 years and was a very popular Mayor of the borough in 2013 and 14. She was a very hard-working and conscientious member of many committees and represented the residents of Charnock Ward, Pemberton very well. All our thoughts and prayers are with Dorothy's family at this very sad time for us all. Thank you.
Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a sad day indeed when we heard the news about former councillor Dorothy Gardner's sad passing. Dorothy was born and educated in Preston. She trained as a midwife, and then part of her training was actually in Leyland, which began her links to the borough of South Ribble. Dorothy subsequently met her husband and former councillor Melvyn Gardner at a Young Conservative event. And they've been together ever since and were married for some 54 years, which is a wonderful achievement, particularly in today's world. Politics was always a big part of their lives, so much so that they actually spent part of their honeymoon, believe it or not, at the Conservative Party conference in Brighton, which took place that year. Now, there's commitment to the party, and I think that goes a step, maybe too far, but that showed you something of Melvyn and Dorothy's commitment. They had a daughter together after getting married, called Rachel, who sadly passed away, and that did have some impact on them probably for the rest of their lives. But they then subsequently had another daughter, Ruth, who meant so much to them. And then in the fullness of time, a beautiful granddaughter who became a big part of Dorothy's life, particularly in recent years. Dorothy and Melvin were keen caravanners and enjoyed many family holidays around Britain and Europe. Mr. Mayor, it was my pleasure to meet Dorothy over 20 years ago, and we were both elected to South Ribble Borough Council on the same day in 2003, represented different wards and got stuck into representing our communities. But I actually really got to know Dorothy well when she subsequently stood for a by-election at Pemberton Town Council, and I spent a lot of the time during that campaign supporting her, and we became good friends and remained good friends ever since. She was a passionate person about serving her community in Pemberton first and foremost, and then the wider South Ribble. She served on many committees here and for a time as a lead member under the new lead member arrangements which Councillor Mrs Smith put in place when we took control of the council back in 2007. I always found Dorothy to be very proactive, and she was involved in many activities in the Pemberton area, such as Pemberton in Bloom, the Pemberton Gala, and served as a mayor of Pemberton. I think it was about 2007, 2008. And I know that she really enjoyed that time as the mayor. And in some ways that served as an apprenticeship for her, because some years later in 2013, Dorothy became the mayor of South Ribble. And that was a tremendous honour to her. And I remember when she became the mayor, it was actually on the day when I celebrated quite a big birthday then, 10 years ago, so I won't tell you how many, but I remember celebrating it on the day when she became the mayor, so I always remember that evening particularly well. And Dorothy and Melvin, as her consort, were both very happy to represent the whole borough throughout that year and did an absolutely sterling job doing so. In her private life, Mr Mayor, Dorothy was a very strong Christian. She had a strong personal faith, and she attended St Leonard's Church in Pemberton whenever she could do, and was an active member of the choir there. So yeah, it's something she could sing far better than I could. Dorothy was a very kind person. She had patience towards everyone she met, whether it was residents or people that she met. She was a midwife for many years, responsible for delivering lots of babies. Maybe some of the younger members here may have been delivered by Dorothy, who knows. But she had friends across the chamber as well, so she was never somebody that was disliked, I don't think, by anyone. She really could work with people for the good of the residents of Pemberton and South Ribble. She will be sadly missed, Mr Mayor, by everyone, and on behalf of the Conservative group, we send our heartfelt condolences to Melvin, to Ruth and to the family at this very sad time. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Mary. I totally associate ourselves with all the comments from Councillor Green and Councillor Walton. Councillor Wooldridge rang me last weekend, but last, and said that Dorothy wasn't too good, and we were quite taken aback. So then to hear a few days later she'd passed away, it was quite shocking. And I always remember Dorothy as a really happy, friendly person. I enjoyed being on the council when she was the mayor, and every single time I bumped into her, and it was quite recently as well, she was always happy to talk and always had something to say. So you absolutely have all our condolences along with Melvin on behalf of the Labour group. Thank you.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I first met Dorothy in around 2012, and I always found her to be a caring and gentle person. It did not surprise me at all when I found out that she was a senior midwife. I was humbled when she asked me to take part in her Women's of Achievement fundraiser event, and it was a brilliant afternoon, raising lots of money for her mayoral charities. I still have the picture taken with the other guest speakers, together with Dorothy, which I've always kept and cherished. On behalf of the Lib Dems, I wish to offer our sincere condolences to Dorothy and her family at this very sad time.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else indicating they wish to speak. So if I could start with some domestic arrangements for the meeting. Due to the regulations surrounding voting, only those members physically present are able to vote. However, if members dialing in via Teams would like to contribute to the debate, please use the raised hand function on your iPad. If you use one of the communal microphones, please use the cleaning materials provided after you've used it. Mobile devices, please ensure that all electronic equipment is either on silent mode or switched off to minimise interruption. The meeting is being live streamed during open session for members of the public to watch. If you would like to speak, please press your microphone to let me know, and when I invite you to speak, your microphone will turn red. As this is the budget meeting, I will allow the same amount of time for the main speakers, around 10 minutes. So, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies have been received from councillors Alty, Colton, Hughes, Mort, Suthers, Yates and Higgins. Councillors Colton and Suthers are attending online. We've also had apologies from Councillor Watkinson and Councillor Adams, who will be late to the meeting but are intending to attend.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Can I just say?
Sorry.
Can I just say I'm going to give apologies for Lou Jackson. She was hoping to get here, but has a pressing matter in hand. So I will give apologies for Lou.
Okay, those apologies are noted. Councillor Walton.
Give apologies for Councillor John Rainsbury as well. He's been delayed and I don't think he'll be attending tonight for a personal reason. Thank you.
Do we have Councillor Green?
Apologies, Mr. Mayor. Apologies also from Councillor Thirlborn, who's been delayed and may not be able to attend. Thank you.
Right, do we have any other apologies? No, in which case, do we have any declarations of interest? Item 3 is the minutes of the last meeting. Can I ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Foster, to propose that the minutes be approved?
Opposed, Mayor.
Is that seconded? Are there any questions on points of accuracy? In which case, are those approved? Thank you. That then takes me to the Mayor's announcements. Since the last council meeting, I've attended various engagements, including the opening of the new Buttermere building at Runshaw College in Leyland, the Holocaust Memorial Service here at the Civic Centre, a community event offering support to adults who are affected by childhood sexual abuse at St Mary's Community Centre, and a half-term football session at Priory Academy in Penwortham, and I've still not lost it. On the 17th of February, I hosted my spring banquet, and what a fantastic evening we all had, with lovely food from the mill of St Catherine's and entertainment from the Red Rosette Show Choir. Thank you to everyone that came out and supported the event. It's very much appreciated, and the Mayoress in particular had a smashing time. And those who were there will know what that refers to. You should all have received an invite to my next event, which is a networking event to promote and support International Women's Day. The event will be held next Tuesday, the 7th of March at 12 noon here at the Civic Centre, with lunch and guest speakers Jackie D. Rose, the Chief Executive of Progress Housing, Lynn Kelly, the Chief Executive of St Catherine's Hospice, and Lorraine Norris, the former Chief Executive of Preston City Council. So if you would like to attend, if you could please let Louise know, and everybody will be welcome. That now takes us on to item 6. Sorry, it takes us on to item 5. If I could ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Foster, to present the report of the Cabinet.
Thanks, Mayor. In front of you, you'll see the report from Cabinet held on Wednesday, the 22nd of February 2023, Mayor. We discussed and adopted the South Ribble Economic Strategy. We reviewed the Capital and Balance Sheet Monitoring Report for Q3. We then went on to review the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report for Q3, and we passed the draft budgets to come forward here to Council. And I commend the report to Council, Mayor. Thank you.
Is that seconded? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? No, in which case that takes us to item 6, urgent decisions, which has been withdrawn because there haven't been any since the last meeting. So that then takes us to item 7, the report of the Scrutiny Committee. And if I could ask the Chair of Scrutiny, Councillor Angela Turner, to present the report.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the report's been copied out to everybody, and I would commend this report to the council. Thank you.
Is that seconded? Thank you. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Which now leads us to item 8, the Revenue Budget, Medium-Term Financial Strategy and Capital Programme. And if I could invite the leader of the council, if I could invite the Cabinet Member for Finance, Property and Assets, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Members will be pleased to know I intend to address the whole budget in one speech, and I suggest we vote on the whole package rather than each individual item. Otherwise, we'll be here certainly well beyond the time at which the football kicks off, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, it's my enormous privilege to stand before Council and present our budget proposals for the next financial year. In doing so, I'd like to offer my sincere thanks to a number of people. To Louise Mattison, our Section 151 officer, and her team, of course. To the Labour Group for their steadfast support for Cabinet and what we are trying to achieve. And to our supply and confidence partners in the Liberal Democrat Group, who, despite one or two bumps in the road, have enabled us to lead a strong and stable administration for the last 4 years. And of course, to each and every member of our staff, without who none of the work we are so proud of would have been delivered. I hope you'll forgive me, Mr. Mayor, if I take this opportunity to reflect back on what that secure administration has been able to achieve. 4 years ago, a fractured and frankly dysfunctional Tory group presented its final budget to this council. In that budget, they proposed a 2% increase in council tax. Their medium-term financial strategy was predicting they would be borrowing £20 million by now, and was further predicting that by the end of this year, their reserves would have dwindled to £18 million. There was a minimal amount set aside for essential repairs at Worden Hall, no identified pot for Hurst Grange Coach House, no funding plans for the Mackenzie Arms, and no sustained playground refurbishment programme. Yet here we are 4 years later, and the Labour Group are proposing the third consecutive year of a freeze in our portion of the council tax. We have no external borrowing, and we still are predicting reserves of over £17 million. It's important for members across the council to reflect upon the fact that we currently have the third highest level of reserves of any district council in Lancashire. And what a 4 years we've had. We have totally transformed iconic buildings at Hurst Grange Coach House and Worden Hall. We've completely refurbished 10 playgrounds right across the borough. We've improved miles of footpaths and green links. Opened a state-of-the-art football facility in Bamber Bridge. Opened the borough's first credit union. Provided over 60,000 meals to our most vulnerable children during school holidays. And that has led into us operating a truly trailblazing holiday activity and food programme. We've empowered our community hubs. We've financially supported dozens of community, sports and leisure groups as we have come out of the pandemic. We've built the borough's first council houses for a generation. We've established music in the park. We've reduced the garden waste charge by 17%. And we have ended the contrick of outsourcing by bringing our waste collection service and our leisure provision back in-house, ending the farce of paying large private companies inflated management fees and thus enabling us to pay our staff who work so hard better terms and conditions and good pensions to look forward to in the future. And all of this, Mr. Mayor, over a period where we had to deal with a once-in-a-century pandemic, which made so much project delivery difficult. During the pandemic, I was really proud of the way our staff reacted in a responsive and flexible way to support those of our residents who were most at risk. We carried out thousands of welfare calls, delivered much needed food parcels, collected and delivered prescriptions, and offered a range of support and advice to so many of our residents who were at risk. As well as the work we do out in the community, we've also transformed the workings of the council itself. A new shared senior management team with our colleagues in Chorley has generated efficiencies and brought in new ideas and experience which were previously lacking at the council. Our commitment to the acceleration of the shared services agenda has generated significant savings and brought more resilient teams better placed to deliver on our ambitious plans for the future. We've made significant investments in IT, which will enable our staff to work smarter and in a more joined-up way going forward. And I'm sure the whole council was proud, as I was, when our senior management team were recognised as award winners at last year's Municipal Journal's annual awards. Now, looking forward to next year, Mayor, councillors will see that we are once again proposing to freeze our portion of the council tax, as we promised we would. That we are able to do this despite the economic shocks we have suffered is entirely down to the commitment and hard work of all of our staff right across the council. It would be remiss of me at this point not to mention the recent economic situation, and along with a government that seems to find it impossible to plan more than 12 months into the future, this all makes the medium-term financial picture even more challenging than it may have been in recent years. Members will be aware that the government has awarded our staff a well-deserved 7% wage increase, but hasn't provided the council with any extra money to fund it. Meanwhile, soaring energy costs might be good news for the BPs and the Shells of this world, but they are not good news for those of us who have to heat swimming pools and keep sports halls open. To try and protect the council against the worst of these pressures, members will see we have put aside £993,000 in an inflation risk reserve to ensure we don't run the risk of turning off our pools or laying off our staff in the coming years. But that doesn't stop us being ambitious for our borough and our residents. And so, Mr. Mayor, I'm delighted to announce our plans for 2023-24. We are proposing £240,000 to establish a social prescribing offer across South Ribble, supporting families and individuals in need. A further £100,000 fund to support community groups and organisations across the borough. We have plans to establish a family wellbeing centre and have put aside another £430,000 to refurbish yet more of our well-loved playgrounds. We have an ambitious £17 million plan to deliver the borough's first extra care housing scheme. Over £7 million of improvements to our 3 leisure centres, future-proofing our facilities in Leyland, Bamberbridge and Penwortham. There is earmarked £300,000 to support our businesses. And of course, we will deliver the transformative Leyland Town deal, adding £13 million of our own money to the £25 million government grant to build a town centre fit for the 21st century. And as I said, and I will say again, all of this with our 3rd consecutive freeze on council tax. Mr. Mayor, there are more houses in South Ribble in Band B than in any other of the council tax bandings. When we took control of this council in 2019, a council Band B taxpayer paid South Ribble Borough Council £170.24 a year for all the services they received, plus an extra £30 if they chose to have a brown bin. A total of £200.24. Now, as we go into 2023, that same council tax Band B taxpayer will pay South Ribble Borough Council £173.63 plus £25 for a brown bin, a total of £198.63. That's right, Mr. Mayor. 4 years on, with inflation rampant, we see services improved, millions of pounds of investment in our local community, and many of our residents are now actually paying us less in cash terms than they were 4 years ago. In that same time frame, Conservative-controlled Lancashire County Council has increased council tax from £1,346 a year to £1,456 a year, an increase of over 8%. The Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner is raising his portion of the council tax by over 6% this year alone. And nationally, the Conservatives are presiding over the country's highest tax burden since the Second World War. Never again let it be said that the Conservatives are the party of low taxes. It's a myth that has been well and truly busted. Mr. Mayor, 4 years ago, we made a promise to the electorate. We promised we would strive to produce excellent services. We would do our best to support and empower the most vulnerable, and we would do our utmost to minimise the tax burden that they have to bear. And that is precisely what we have done. I'm so proud to propose this budget to council, and I urge every single councillor in this room to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is that seconded?
Bearing if with your, I will speak later if you don't mind.
Thanks. Now, at this point, I would usually ask the lead Conservative member to respond. However, we do have an amendment to the budget which has been previously circulated. So if I could invite Councillor Karen Walton to propose the amendment.
Just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, can I do my speech now, or do you just want the proposal for the amendment?
Well, your speech is to actually propose to speak to the amendment.
Just to clarify it. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me the opportunity to address the council tonight. The Conservative group intend to put forward 4 amendments, which you all have in front of you, to the proposed budget tonight. The amendment has been carefully considered and costed in consultation with the S151 officer and can be accommodated with the 2023-24 budget. Firstly, again, I would like to thank all the officers and staff for all their hard work throughout the past year, for all the residents of South Ribble. We once again have found ourselves in challenging times, with residents finding at least the last 12 months, very difficult, with many of them facing an uncertain future and struggling financially due to the war in Ukraine and global forces beyond our control. This unfortunately will continue due to the cost of living and energy cost prices rising sharply. We feel it is very important to support our residents during these difficult financial times, and supporting the freezing of the council tax for the coming financial year. We will be supporting this. But this will come at a cost to the council in future years, with a predicted budget deficit of £967,000 for the next financial year and £1,879,000 for the 2025-26 financial year. The capital programme will be over £91 million by the year 2025-26, and the total reserves are already reduced by £6,850,000 for this financial year. this administration is still continuing the good work which the previous Conservative administration began, with support for the award-winning Worden Park and the installation of equipment for disabled children, the first park to do so, and starting the Green Flag Awards, the first outside London, followed by the Longton Brickcroft and Hurstgrange Park. Again, for supporting businesses with government grants throughout the pandemic to create good employment opportunities, working with partners, developing the apprentice factory, delivering new social and affordable homes, supporting our ageing and vulnerable residents, developing and supporting the volunteer and faith sectors, business transformation to support the climate change agenda. The list does go on. But residents must have access to the most important services and support when they need it most, as we all agree with this. We also welcome the continued improvements to all parks and open spaces and playgrounds, improving the health and well-being and supporting sports communities and the environment for all our residents. However, this has only been achieved with the amount of funding received by this council from the Conservative government to support this council. The total government funding received by this council since February 2022 totals 49,658,000. But the leader of this council has stated on a number of occasions that this council does not receive any government funding. The amendments proposed by the Conservative group tonight are designed to improve the health and well-being of all our residents and make South Ribble a safer, healthier and happier place to live. And we hope they will be accepted as a friendly amendment tonight. We wish to focus on the very serious issue of speeding traffic in all areas of the borough by providing SPIDs in all wards and working with parish councils, community hubs, the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Road Safety Partnership to purchase more devices where there is the greatest need, to support first-time buyers to get onto the property ladder by working with developers to deliver the government's first home scheme, where discounts of up to 50% on the purchase price of a house can be achieved for a first-time buyer with a combined income of up to £80,000 per year, by employing a specialist officer to negotiate with the government, the developers, the council and the residents to access the benefits of this government scheme. We also wish to improve the street scene and the appearance of the whole borough with projects such as renewing old and unsightly bus shelters and providing new bus shelters where possible where they are needed. To replace and install new litter and dog bins in areas where they have been requested by residents, especially in the new housing developments and the areas surrounding them. To provide new benches and enhanced seating areas with planters and enhance all village centres or retail areas of the borough to encourage residents to visit them and to shop local. The refocusing of the Central Parks project, which was started in 2014 as a 10-year project to celebrate the 50 years anniversary of South Ribble Borough Council next year. This year is in preparation for the council's Golden Jubilee. The whole project needs to be revisited and improvements made to the walking and cycling routes and new projects for the park from the original plans started to provide more natural play areas, mountain bike trails, recreation amenities and focusing on the ecology and biodiversity of the whole area. The park runs through the whole central area of the borough, providing the residents of Lost Cove, Bamber Bridge, Waltondale and Penwitham with a beautiful natural place to walk, run, exercise and safe in cycle in a traffic-free environment and linking up to the River Ribble and Preston at the Tram Bridge, which will be reconstructed, thank goodness, due to the government's Levelling Up Fund. The previous Conservative administration left this authority in a very financially robust situation and totally debt-free to enable the financing of many worthwhile projects. But what gives us the greatest concern is the growing level of debt which this Labour administration is planning to lead this borough into for the foreseeable future. This administration's spending spree and long-term projection of external debt, as indicated on the liability benchmark, amounts of up to £40 million of debt, decreasing to £10 million of debt by 2062. And with a predicted capital programme spending of over £91 million by 2025-26, will leave our residents with an eye-watering borrowing debt, which will take generations of council taxpayers to pay off, placing a heavy burden on our children and grandchildren for the future. We read the sentences: required to be affordable and prudent, and value for money to be demonstrated. Yet this Labour administration has pushed ahead with the loss-making project, such as the Mackenzie Arms site in Bamber Bridge, spending over £3 million to build 15 social houses, despite outside advice to consider a more affordable and better value for money project on this site, leaving more money to purchase or build more social houses in the borough. This council may find themselves with a significant gap between the capital funding requirements and current borrowing levels in the future. We cannot support the amount of spending of over £91 million that this administration has planned for the future South Ribble. This includes the estimated cost at the moment of almost £18 million for the delivery of the Jubilee Gardens Extra Care Scheme, when other councils in the region have supported and delivered similar projects without the need to provide the funding to build such a project, and we would have delivered the scheme in a similar way so as not to burden this council with millions of pounds in debt. There are many areas which we do support within this budget, and we also acknowledge that there are many assumptions and uncertainties going forward in the future. But as a group, we cannot support this budget tonight, as we cannot support the amount of debt and borrowing that this authority will be subjecting all our residents to in an uncertain future. Therefore, I present the amendments to the 2023-24 budget tonight. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second that proposal. Thank you.
It's been proposed as a friendly amendment. Are you prepared to accept the amendment?
So you won't be surprised to hear that I rise to oppose this very late amendment to the budget. I don't intend to address many of the things that Councillor Mrs. Walton said in her speech, because we've been over it before and we're just going to have to agree to disagree. We're ambitious for this borough and they are not. Okay. When it comes to the actual amendments proposed, each of those amendments, you are proposing to fund them by simply taking out cash from our inflation risk reserve. The four proposals would spend an extra £570,000 from a budget that we have set aside of £993,000. Now, any of these proposals individually could have been considered, planned and built into a budget if only they'd been put forward on one of the many opportunities that the Conservative group have had to do so. Yeah. They could have made informal approaches to me, a cabinet member or the leader. They failed to do so. They could have brought them up when the budget was considered at scrutiny. They failed to do so. They could have raised it as part of the public consultation, and yet they failed to do so. And when they had a last chance at the cabinet meeting, which some of them attended, they failed to do so. They failed 4 times to bring these projects forward. They failed 4 times on a chance to have these ideas built into a financially sustainable budget. And what do they do at 6 o'clock tonight? They suggest we spend our inflation risk reserve to deliver these things. At a time when inflation is running in double digits, when wage demands and settlements are far higher than our potential chance to increase income, when other leisure providers are turning off the heating in their swimming pools because of the rising cost of heating, it is surely right that any prudent, well-run council would set aside an amount of money to see us over the next couple of years and the risk that inflation poses. Our support for the leisure company this year alone, the current financial year, was over £500,000. And if we are foolhardy enough to accept the proposals in this amendment, our inflation reserve would instantly be reduced to a figure below the amount we've already had to provide. So much for the party of sound financial planning. Mr. Mayor, I urge all sensible councillors in the room to oppose this amendment. And I'd now like to propose, Mr. Mayor, that we move to a vote on the amendment.
Seconded.
Right, we've had a proposal to move to the vote. I have to take a vote on that as to whether we do. So if you could press your buttons for, against or abstain on moving to the vote. Screen as well.
It's warming up.
We've got the job creation.
If you accepted the amendment, given that the Conservative group were going to propose a substantive. It doesn't need to be recorded. It can be done by show of hands, or I can show of.
Right, clearly the screens aren't operating as yet, so I'm going to take this on a show of hands. Those in favour of moving to the vote? Those against? That is clearly carried. Because this is a budget meeting, we have to have a named vote, and we're going to do that by reading out each councillor's name, I presume alphabetically, and if you could indicate whether you are for the amendment or against the amendment, or you wish to abstain.
Yeah, we need to start. Ready? You ready, Darren? That's what happens when not from there.
Right, so as your name is called, please state whether you're for, against, or you're abstaining on the amendment.
Councillor Adams. Yeah. Councillor Alty. Sorry. Councillor Bell. Councillor Bredderton. Councillor Buttery. Councillor Belinsky-Gelder. Councillor Campbell, Councillor Chisholm. Councillor Donoghue. Councillor Flannery. Councillor Forrest. Councillor Foster. Yes. Councillor Mary Green. Councillor Michael Green. Councillor Hancock. Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Howarth.
Against.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hunter. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Lomax.
Against.
Councillor Marsh. Councillor Martin. Councillor Moon. Councillor Mort. Councillor Molyneux. Councillor Ogilvie. Councillor Rainsbury. Councillor Sharples. Councillor Shaw. Councillor Margaret Smith. Councillor Phil Smith. Councillor Titherington. Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Councillor Trafford. Councillor Turner. Councillor Unsworth. Councillor Walton. Councillor Watkinson. Councillor Watson. Councillor Wharton Hardman. Councillor Wooldridge.
Right, the amendment is lost by 24 votes to 17. If we could now move back onto the substantive motion and the budget, would the lead member of the opposition like to speak to the main budget? No, in which case it's now open to debate on the budget itself. If you would like to speak to this, if you could indicate. Councillor Angela Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm rising to commend this budget and to congratulate Councillor Tomlinson on yet another council tax freeze without any backdoor taxes for residents or cuts in services. As this is the last budget before we go into the elections in May, I think it's worth looking back at what went before and what has been achieved since this administration took control of the council, with the Liberal Democrats holding the balance of power and working with our partners in a confidence and supply arrangement. Firstly, looking back to the previous administration, who imposed council tax increases over 4 years of 2.99%, 1.99% and 1.99% before claiming to freeze the council tax just before the last election. I say claim to have, as despite assuring the council and our residents in their literature that they would not charge for garden waste, their indirect backdoor tax was the equivalent of 14.5% for a Band D property. Which brings me to our heads of agreement, which has been delivered. Budget scrutiny, town centre plans brought forward, a support for apprenticeships, local procurement, building affordable homes, community hubs with delegated budgets and decision making, a rolling programme of playground refurbishments at 17.5% reduction in green waste charges, scrapping replacement bin charges, more dog bins, electric charging points, hybrid mayoral car, very nice in the back, that car, a fair and equitable appointment of the mayor, I think that's significant, and no holds barred effective scrutiny of all portfolios. Mr. Mayor, as Stevie Wonder would say, signed, sealed, delivered at no extra cost to the council taxpayer, no backdoor charges in a managed, balanced budget. I am pleased to support the budget proposals.
Anybody else wish to speak to the budget? Councillor Phil Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think at this time it'd be very useful just to take this to a vote. Thank you.
So is that a proposal to move to the vote? Right. Is it seconded? All those in favour of moving to the vote, please show. All those against? That seems to have been defeated, so we continue with the debate. Councillor Aniela Bilinski-Gelder.
Thank you. Thank you. This budget and every budget since South Ribble Labour, with the support of the Lib Dems, took over South Ribble in 2019 has been personal for me. If you speak to members of the Labour group, many of us have very personal reasons and stories about what brought us into politics. I didn't like the decisions which were being made on my behalf, so I decided to get involved. Plato said about politics, if you do not take an interest in the affairs of your government, then you are doomed to live under the rule of fools. I wanted to challenge the status quo and make a positive difference to my local community, for my children, friends, family and residents. I would invite anyone to do the same. It's difficult making the decision to raise your head above the parapet, but looking back over the last 4 years, I'm extremely glad that I did. Speaking as the Cabinet Member for Communities, Social Justice and Wealth Building, I can point to so many positive outcomes: thriving communities, holiday hunger, the HAF programme, the food bank network, the credit union, 200,000 in grants to local community groups, links to the Cooperative Council Innovation Network, the community hubs have been reconfigured, and £25,000 boost fund enabling communities to do it for themselves, and the promise to do even more this year, with 240,000 to establish and enhance social prescribing in South Ribble, 100,000 grant fund to be delivered supporting community groups and organisations across South Ribble, and 48,000 to establish a South Ribble Family Wellbeing Centre. A fair economy for all, with the introduction of community wealth building in South Ribble. We now know that all of the money we spend is reinvested into local people's skills and the local economy. Huge multi-million-pound contracts need to provide some social local return, and this is through the social value policy. Finally, I'm speaking as a ward councillor for Leyland Central, which includes Huff Lane in Leyland. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to both the leader, Councillor Paul Foster, as well as the late Councillor Bill Evans, and my Cabinet colleagues for their dedication and tenacity in succeeding in winning 25 million from the Government Town Fund. This is a huge coup for regeneration of Leyland Town Centre, which has been neglected for decades. No stopping us now. The project has commenced, and we will see a total 338 million invested, including new public spaces, retail units and social housing, as well as a dedicated building for training and learning. I am immensely proud to be associated with this budget and the decisions of the executive over the last 4 years. As a group, we don't just do what we have to. We know what our statutory duties are. We go above and beyond. We actively listen, act courageously, compassionate and competently. We want everyone in South Ribble to have opportunities to thrive, leaving no one behind. And we did it and will continue to do it without any debt and within budget. This budget and the positive track record of this administration is all the evidence you need to vote in favour of this budget. Well done, Councillor Tomlinson, on another ambitious and compassionate budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Sue Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say, on behalf of the residents of St Ambrose Ward, which I will have represented for almost 12 years now, and my fellow councillor Kath Unsworth, I'd just like to say thank you for Strawberry Valley Park, otherwise known as Bent Lane Park, which, if you remember, was possibly going to have houses built on it. South Ribble Labour was not going to let that happen. We have a thriving playground now, but not only that, we have a thriving community that is working, and I think we may have some of our community here tonight, a thriving community which is using that playground to enhance the wider community, and so it's been a really good success story, and thank you.
Right, I don't have anybody else indicating they wish to speak. Councillor Foster, would you like to speak as you reserve the right?
Yes, thanks. I'm going to be very brief. I did have a few words to say, but I can't really say too much more than Councillor Tomlinson and my colleagues have said. I do have to correct one or two things that Councillor Walton has stated in public again, though. I am confused as well, Councillor Walton, because you said you wanted to announce, you presented an amendment to a budget you were then going to vote against. I think you've been talking to Councillor Green again. You did say you were going to vote against something you were going to propose, but however, the numbers that you once again stated were the COVID grants, Councillor Walton. This council received from government over the last 2 or 3 years tune of £43 million worth of COVID grants. That was not to fund the revenue account. And I really do urge members of the Conservative group to be briefed, and I know none of you turned up other than Councillor Suthers to the budget briefing on Saturday. It would have been helpful if you did, because you'd understand the figures that you're stating, Councillor Walton, are just incorrect. What we have spent on council determined expenditure over the past 4 years is £62.7 million. We have no debt. We've invested over £15 million into capital schemes, and we've administered £47 million worth of housing claims. You keep stating, Councillor Walton, as well, that it isn't sustainable for us to build extra care schemes, which is policy of Lancashire County Council, which is policy of government for us to do. These are homes which are self-sustainable. Somebody has to build them. So the council intervenes and builds them, but they are wholly sustainable with the rents that are paid on the apartments. I really would like the evidence of other extra care schemes that have been built in Lancashire where they haven't been built with any money, because that may be the new Conservative mantra, but I don't understand how that can happen, because every extra care scheme I visited, and I've visited many in Lancashire, that is down to investment from the local authority. Finally, I'd like to once again thank our supply and confidence partners, the Liberal Democrat group, who have held our hands to the coal over the past 4 years, who have held us to account, and rightly so. But together, we have delivered, and delivered big time, to the residents of South Ribble. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? No, in which case, Councillor Tomlinson, would you like to sum up?
I'll be very, very, very brief, Mr. Mayor. I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 4 years. It's been 4 years where I think in all the time I've been involved in councils at whatever level, this has been the 4 years where an administration has come in with absolute promises, complete clarity on what we wanted to do, and we've delivered. I would encourage anybody to look at our manifesto from 4 years ago, and I'm sure if you ask nicely, we're prepared to provide you with a copy if you haven't already got one. And look at what we promised 4 years ago. Look at what we said we wanted to do. Look at how we shaped this council and its budgets to enable us to achieve what we wanted to do. But more importantly, look at what we've done. I'm as confident as I've ever been in the outcome of a forthcoming election, but one never knows. And should the earth fall in, should the mountains fall into the sea, should the sky fall down, and we don't win the election, I will leave this position a proud councillor, proud of the support I've had from my colleagues, proud of how concentrated we've been on delivering for our residents, and proud of what a change we've made to our borough. I commend the budget again to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Again, this is a budget setting meeting, so it has to be a recorded vote. So once again, when your name is read out, if you could say whether you're for the budget, against the budget, or you wish to abstain.
As well. To read out the recommendations.
Oh, you are.
Sorry, I don't need to get on to it.
The officer to my right has decided it might be as well.
I'd like to disassociate myself.
And the chief executive is disassociating himself from this. It might be well if I read out the recommendations. So, recommendation A, approve the budget and proposals set out in this report, including the level of council tax as set out in the formal council tax resolution, including Paris Precepts 23/24 at Appendix A. B, note the advice of the Chief Finance Officer in relation to the robustness of the estimates within the overall budget, including the risks contained within it and the adequacy of the proposed level of financial reserves as set out in the statutory report at Appendices B1 to B3. C, approve the Council's mid-term financial strategy at Appendix C. D, note the council's forecast cumulative budget deficit and budget strategy 2023 to 24 to 2025-26 at Appendix D. E, note the analysis of the movement in the 2023-2024 budget from the position approved by Council in February 2022 at Appendix E. F, approve the capital programme for 2023-24 to 2025-26, Appendices F1, F2 and F3. G, approve the capital strategy at Appendix G. H, approve the Treasury Management Strategy at Appendix H and note the advice of the Treasury Management Consultants at Appendix H1. I, approve the Council's pay policy at Appendix, if that's 1 or L, I, Appendix I, for publication on the Council's website from April 2023, including Appendix I, brackets I, the pay scales for South Ribble Council, and Appendix I, brackets II, the pay scales for shared services. J, note the budget consultation 2023-24 report at Appendix J. And K, note the assessing the impact of budget proposals 2023-24 report at Appendix K. Are we all satisfied we know what we're voting on? So, when your name is called out, if you could indicate whether you are for the budget, against the budget, or you wish to abstain.
Councillor Adams. Councillor Bell. Councillor Bretherton. Councillor Buttery. Councillor Belinsky-Gelder. Councillor Campbell. Councillor Chisholm. Councillor Donoghue. Councillor Flannery. Councillor Forrest. Councillor Foster. Councillor Mary Green. Councillor Michael Green. Councillor Hancock. Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Howarth. Councillor Hunter. Councillor Jones. Councillor Lomax.
4.
Councillor Marsh. Councillor Martin. Councillor Moon. Councillor Molyneux. Councillor Ogilvie. Councillor Sharples. Councillor Shaw. Councillor Margaret Smith. Councillor Phil Smith. Councillor Titherington. Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Councillor Trafford. Councillor Turner. Councillor Unsworth. Councillor Walton. Councillor Watkinson. Councillor Watson. Councillor Wharton Hardman. Councillor Wooldridge.
My maths is correct. That's 23 in favour, nobody against, 17 abstentions and 1 daft comment. So the budget is approved, and that takes us on to item 9, which is questions to the Leader of the Council. Are there any questions for the Leader from any member? Councillor Jane Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would the Leader agree with me that the community groups across South Ribble have been doing a sterling job over the last few years and for a lot of years before that? And I particularly want to mention one of my residents who has been busy in Seven Stars for 30 years, to my knowledge, who was honoured in the honours list with her MBE. And I'd like to minute that Joan Musker, one of our lovely community workers, has been recognised. And would the Leader agree with me that this is absolutely splendid?
Thanks, Jane. Community is strength. We always say that, don't we? And we're nothing without our community. And I completely align myself with your comments. And we publicly congratulate Joan, and it couldn't go on to a better person. Thank you. And also congratulate Councillor Paul Wharton Hardman for his BEM. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions to the Leader from members? Any questions from the public? No, so moving on, questions to Cabinet members, and I'll take these in order. Questions for the Cabinet member, Health and Wellbeing, Councillor Mick Titherington. Councillor Gareth Watson.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh gosh, that's a bit of feedback. Is that any better? There we go. I'll stand at this distance. Sorry, just a question in relation to contingency preparation that's been in the budget. Obviously, I can see that there's elements in there around energy supply and so on and so forth. So it's good to see that we're preparing for that. It's in relation to the heat pumps and so on that we're looking at putting into our leisure facilities. Of course, as we shift to greener energy tariffs as well for that, there's likely to be an impact in higher costs as a consequence of running the heat pumps compared to what we're currently doing. Obviously, it's something we have to do. It's something we have all welcomed. I just wanted to make sure we had some kind of calculation done, basically, just to make sure that we are ensuring that there's enough in there just in case it turns out to be higher than we expect, the potential difference between the two. But also just relates me to something else that was mentioned at a previous full council. It very may be that I've got the context wrong of this, but there was just a mention of microwave boilers at some point. I've just had it just triggered a note of concern in my head at the time. I think, as everyone knows, I'm quite something of a geek in many a subject. I was quite pleased to see Plato being quoted earlier, being a bit of a philosophy one as well. But anyway, regardless, physics is one of my particular interests. I just have a concern around the feasibility of those if we are looking to install them. On the same principle, obviously, the number of microwaves you'd need to heat that amount of water to get even a household heated in any kind of speed would require an enormous amount of current flow in quite a significant amperage, way above what would be beyond a normal household's capacity to take, really. And amperage is a scary bit of electricity that kills you. But anyway, it's just, if we are going to be using those kind of things, obviously I'm concerned about the efficiency and the electrical take that would be using. If we're not, please disregard that last element. It might be something I've completely misremembered. But as I say, the main bit is to do with the heat pumps and so on. Thank you.
Councillor Bretherton was nearly in danger of having his record for the longest question taken there. Councillor Titherington, do you have a response?
I'm a self-confessed non-geek. So, I mean, if we're talking about microwave boilers, I really do not know. I mean, and if we sort of want to have a look at it, then I will ask officers to have a look at it and reply accordingly. In relation to the heating or the decarbonisation, of course, in order to get the grant from the government, we had to comply with whatever regulations that governed the successful application. So, I mean, I'm confident that whatever we are doing in terms of the decarbonisation meets those requirements. And so I'm satisfied that everything, well, no, I was going to say everything will be all right, but that's something that you should never, ever say. But I am as confident as I can be that we are on the right track with the decarbonisation.
Okay with that? Any other questions for the Cabinet Member Health and Wellbeing? Any questions from the public? No. That then takes us to questions for the Cabinet Member Community, Social Justice and Wealth Building, Councillor Aniela Bilinski-Gelder. None from members. Any questions from the public? No. That takes us to questions for the Cabinet Member Finance, Property and Assets, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Councillor Damien Bretherton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a question of a query. The new houses that we're building for the town deal, how does the cost per square metre compared to the Mackenzie Arms? Are they a similar type of cost? And are we predicting a similar type of end value as well? Potential loss on those in capital terms? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to rise to my feet, only to say I'm sure that Councillor Foster is really pleased that Councillor Watson brought up microwave boilers, because that was the only way they were referred to, because Councillor Foster had to express an interest as a director of a company that deals in microwave boilers. And we're not going to put them in leisure centres. When it comes to the town deal, I'm afraid I'd love to answer your question with lots of detail, but the town deal, whilst we are the accountable body, is being delivered by the town deal board and not by this council. So the spec, it went through planning. The whole thing went through planning last week, which is a really exciting time. And I know that the point of building the houses is to help fund the deal itself. So all that due diligence and business case work has been done, but it hasn't been done by me or my department. So thank you for your question. It's not for me to answer it. Sorry.
Do we have any other questions from members of the council? Councillor Paul Wharton-Hardman.
Thank you. In relation to the houses, what have just been discussed in the Leyland Town deal, could the cabinet member please let us know how many of these are included within the 7,000 houses we've allegedly approved to build, or is that separate to these alleged 7,000 houses?
For the question, the honest answer is I don't know, because as try as I might, I've looked through the local plan and I can't get to the figure 7,000. So they may be there, they may be not. Who knows?
Any other questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? In which case, that takes us finally to questions for the Cabinet Member, Planning, Business Support and Regeneration, Councillor James Flannery. Councillor Angela Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the November council meeting last year, Councillor Flannery, you reported that a further report on progressing the Penwortham master plans, including the next steps, procurement strategy and final design, will be presented to the Cabinet in the first quarter of this year. The Cabinet agenda for the next meeting to be held on the 15th of March has not yet been published. However, could you please confirm if this report will be discussed at this meeting? And if not, what has caused the delays, and when will stage 3 of the REBA stage 3 commence? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner, for the question. First of all, I'd just like to say that this administration is fully committed to delivering the Penwortham master plan. Unfortunately, recently there's been some comments on social media that we're not, but we are. Don't know where that's come from, but nevertheless, we are still having plenty of meetings around the phasing and the detail, what's to come next. If you look at the phasing plan, Councillor Turner, I think there might be some misinterpretation, but I'm more than happy to speak to you about it. It's quarter 1 of the 2023, which is from April, June, in line with the budget with 1.9 million. So that's when that next report's due. But in the meantime, we did apply for the Levelling Up Fund for the master plan, which would have give us all the money to deliver all the master plan across Penwortham. But unfortunately, the Levelling Up Fund application was unsuccessful. Another frustration in that was the Levelling Up Fund was due to be decided on October 22, but it was delayed by the government until January 23. So we've only recently had that news. So whilst we are still working on it, we've got a full commitment to it, and the next report is due in quarter 1 of 23, which is the next the first April, May to June. And more than happy to go over any details, or like I have done with other members across the table here, more than happy to meet with you and colleagues in Penwortham to go over any further detail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peter Molyneux.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask the portfolio holder, with the importance of the Central Lancashire
local plan. We have a situation where a number of our planning officers have either left or are due to leave shortly. Could I ask the portfolio holder what plans are in place to address that? Thank you.
Thank you, councillor, for your question. Yeah, we have lost one or two officers, but obviously that's the role of the chief exec and the exec team to address that issue. There has been some interim people in place who have been very valuable and very knowledgeable and have contributed to the consistent process of the plan, and which is being ably chaired by Caleb Tomlinson, Councillor Caleb Tomlinson here. So whilst it is an important consultation just finished on the local plan, and whilst you will see, and I've had plenty of emails regarding the numbers which, or as other councillors have mentioned, can't seem to get to the bottom to, because it seems to be people are putting information out there which doesn't seem to be that accurate. But as I've always done with councillors anyway, I'm more than happy if you've got any queries, like I'm doing in Longton next week, meet with residents, meet with councillors in their wards. I always say to residents when I get emails about planning to do with house developments, because obviously it's very uncomfortable for people, please refer to your local councillors first, and we'd be more than happy to meet together to address any of those concerns. But that consultation has just finished, and in the meantime, we have held additional planning meetings, which have all got run smoothly, as you can see, and some of them very challenging with lots of people interested in them. So I want to congratulate all the members on the planning committee for the work, and all the officers, which the work they've done. And I think we've consistently delivered what we need to deliver as South Ribble. But thanks for your question.
Do we have any other questions from members? Any questions from the public? In which case, that brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you for your attendance. Thank you. Good evening.